So as you mentioned, it's very hard for us to have a pet owner that really ever diversity of the animals. That can be one, they didn't know that they need to do that. Two, it's very hard for you to get an animal that is not used to have the manipulation in the mouth to get used to having that done every day, and it's really a challenge for a lot of owners. And some animals, like
Yeah.
even if you try very hard, it's going to be almost impossible for you to do because it's going to be stressful for the animal and also for the owner. So I think nutrition is a very good thing because again, it's something that is we give to the animal every day. So you're gonna already provide a diet. Why not in the diet have something that is gonna prevent periodontal disease or help a little bit in the periodontal disease?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pet Food Science Podcast, where we seek to discuss current research and how it may apply to innovation in the pet and nutrition industries. I'm your host, Dr. Julia Pezzali, and today I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Dr. Patricia Massae about the topic of oral health in dogs and cats. Welcome, Patricia.
Hi, thank you for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about oral health and nutrition.
No problem. We're glad to have you here in this episode. Before we delve into the topic about oral health, could you tell a little bit of your background and how you ended up in your current position today?
So I'm a veterinarian. I went to school at the University of São Paulo. I did my undergrad there, and like different from here at vet school, we start very young. We start like 17, 19 years old. So normally people go to vet school because like they like animals in general, but they don't really know what kind of field they want to go after. So when I was an undergrad, I did a lot of internship to try to figure out what kind of animals I would like to work, what kind of field I would like to be, if I want to be a surgeon, what I want to do in my life after school. So during those internships, I have the opportunity to do my first research, where I have the first experience doing research. Was very open-minded because like it's very different what we do in a daily basis. So we learn how to collect data, how to analyze data, the importance of have records of everything, and also this specific research was with owners. So we have like, oh, we have to have the owner compliance. We also have to work with like what owners want or don't want to do. So it was very nice to have that opportunity. So I was very thankful. After that, during our last year, normally we have an internship that we do focus on what we want to do after school. So for the internship, I decided to go to the nutrition field so I could like have opportunity to see how this field would look like. Because in my university at the time, we didn't have a professor that worked directly with clinical nutrition or nutrition for pets. So I went to Unesp Jabuticabal and worked together with Dr. Aulus Carcioffi. And that university at the time was the only university in Brazil that had like a place for us to have clinical nutrition applied and also have like internship for that. So I stayed half of my internship working in the hospital together with the residents there, learning how to evaluate clients and their pets, what we can do together to promote health in there. Also, how to formulate diets and all the fun stuff that we don't really learn in school if you don't have someone that is specialized in that. The other half was working in his laboratory. So he has a lot of research focused directly in ingredient, novel ingredient, and also all the fun stuff that we don't really learn as an undergrad. So I was very open-minded because I learned how to do proximate analysis, help collecting samples, analyzing data. So it was very fun because I have an opportunity to do something that I never experienced before. Um, the good thing after I finished my last year, one professor was hired in my university to work specifically with pet nutrition. That was Marcio Brunetto. And then I applied for my master to work with together with him. But because he was new at the university, and again, because my university didn't have any professor beforehand that worked directly with pet nutrition, we didn't have a space for us to have animals to do research there. So for my master, I work again together with Dr. Carciofi. So I went back to Jabuticabal to do my research there. And I have my first experience with working with nutrition and oral health. So my master student was, my master project was the first project that I focused on oral health and nutrition. So it was very nice to have the opportunity again. Thank you to Dr. Carciofi and Dr. Brunetto. Dr. Burnett, again, because he was new at the university, he decided that it would be important for us to have a clinical nutrition service in the hospital. So we started the service in our hospital. And it was very nice because it was like, again, the first time that our hospital at our university had a nutrition service. So a lot of people didn't know what kind of patient would we have if it was only obesity animals or if they could send us like animals with disease or what we really do because like again it was very new. So I was very interested to change people's mind and make sure that people understand that nutrition is important not only for sick animals, but all animals that comes in the hospital. So if it's a new puppy, an old puppy, animals with disease or not with disease, nutrition is important. So it's part of their life. So it would be nice for them to have some guidance. During my PhD, I received a scholarship to come as a visiting scholar here at the University of Illinois. And Dr. Godoy was my advisor here. And I have a very good opportunity to see how different labs work in different countries, or how research is a little bit different here than there. Also, all the protocols, and even if you're doing proximal analysis, there is different way to do the same kind of analysis in the lab. So was very open mind because like you think you know something, but then you go to a different place and you see that you don't know anything at all. So it was very nice. And I worked with her, my student at the time, Juliana, and was very thankful for that because I have the opportunity to follow her during her whole master, at least the part of like sample collection, going overnight, trying to get their samples, and also doing some of the proximal analysis, get hands-on on the lab too. And again, it was the thing that I said, it's very nice to open your mind. Like even if you think you know something, you always can learn to do something a little bit different. And it might be better. So it's always nice to go to a different place and try to learn something new. After that, I went back to Brazil and then I finished my PhD. And then I was invited to come back as a postdoc here under Dr. So-and-so. So during my postdoc, I worked with Dr. So-and-so, but also Dr. Godoy and Dr. Fahey is always like all the three have one room next to each other. So that was an amazing opportunity because again, you are together with people that know so much about it, pet nutrition, and you're exposed to something that is like again is new, it's different, and you kind of learn a little bit from each of them. They are all very different persons. They all have very strong knowledge about pet nutrition. So it was very nice. And then after that, I applied for the position that I'm currently in, that is the assistant professor here.
That's awesome. Very impressive background. And I think you said many important things. One of the first ones, when you move to a different lab, you open your mind. You think you know something, and then you see, okay, there's a different world. And it's always important to do internships or do degrees in different universities and expose yourself to different labs, different people, and learn from them. And exactly as you say, different even proximate analysis is there's a protocol, but we may learn small tricks that may help us on the way when you see someone else doing differently. So very nice insights and very impressive background. And you for sure had great mentors in your life, were trained by amazing people. So congrats for being where you are today. Very impressive and very nice. So you mentioned that you work with oral health back in your master's the first time. So to start and a little bit on the topic, do you mind defining to us what is oral health?
So that is a very good question. Every time that we think about oral health, we think, oh, just my teeth. If my teeth is healthy, that this is oral health. But oral health is basically the whole oral cavity. So it's the bones, it's the muscle, it's the gums, it's the tongue, it's everything that is inside the oral cavity. So it's not only periodontal disease, it's everything else. It can be cancer, can be everything that can possibly affect the oral cavity.
Okay. And on a daily basis, when pet parents are looking at their dog or cat, mouth, or when they realize what they see, usually if they notice something that is not healthy, maybe a halitosis or something different, what they usually see at first when oral health is not at its best place.
So definitely halitosis is the first complaint that we receive in the vet. So like in the clinic, normally people come, oh, my dog smells very bad. I don't know what I can do because it's very hard for an owner to see like the periodontal disease or the mobility of the tooth. So those are kind of hard for them to like notice. But definitely the breath is something that is very easy because like we are always with the face of our animals together with us, so we are like petting them. So that is something that they notice very fast, and that can be good because can lead us to investigate it further and try to figure out what is the cause of that.
Yeah, no, very good. And when we then consider oral health, so halitosis is one component, that one symptom that pet parents are going to see at first. But when you're formulating what diet, is there any objectives that you want to achieve when you think about oral health regarding to maybe plaque formation, calculus, so how those interfere with oral health?
So when you formulate that, it's very different when you are having a patient in your clinic. So like if you have a patient in your clinic, you are first thinking why they come to you. If they come just because they have bad breath, that is something kind of easy to figure out and resolve. But if it's a more advanced periodontal disease that the animal already have mobility and have like we have to do surgery to solve and remove unhealthy tissues, then we're gonna have to think about like what kind of texture of diets we can feed to this animal. But going back to while we have a health animal, I'm in an industry, I just want to formulate a diet for an animal that to prevent periodontal disease. Then if you're working with prevention, I always think about like how we're going to prevent accumulation of bacteria, because that is the first step. Because if you don't have the accumulation of the bacteria, you don't have place for the bacteria, this plaque to calcificate it and ferment the calculus. So, and that doesn't evolve to the further steps of the periodontal disease. So I think cutting in the beginning, you don't gonna have the problems that the
Yeah.
purification of bad bacteria will cause. So like it will depend really like what is like, again, if you're just formulating a diet for everyone that is healthy is one thing, and if you having a patient, it would depend on what degree of periodontal disease this patient has.
Okay, so the first step is preventing the accumulation of bacteria on the surface of the teeth, which is, as you mentioned, is the plaque formation. And then if you have that, you may have the calculus, which would be the mineral deposit on the teeth.
Yeah, so it's basically like it's evolution one from the other, and also because the bacteria is there and proliferated, they're gonna start to degrade the health tissues, and that is gonna create the odor that the owner pursue.
Yeah, and you start mentioning about bacteria. So there are some studies that they evaluate the microbiota or on the oral cavity. So what is the importance of microbiota or changing it or try to manipulate it? There is any impact on oral health?
But yeah, so like as we mentioned, when we think about oral health specifically for periodontal disease, bacteria is a component that is very important in creating this environment that is going to create all the damage in the health tissue. So when we think about microbiota, we want to think about not only modulating, but like change the environment to make sure that they don't proliferate. So the salivary pH is going to affect that. If you have substrate for the microbiota to grow, so like the type of food that I feed my animals is going to help or not having like substrate for them to have nutrients there for them to proliferate. Also, the type of bacteria, because some bacteria are very good in creating an anaerobic environment because they can destruct the tissue and create the periodontal pockets. And those pockets are an anaerobic environment that pathogenic bacteria can proliferate. So like it's a whole, like it's not one microbes, it's like a lot of microbes work together to create an environment that they can survive. And we can change components, like I said, the salivary pH, the nutrient that we feed in our animals, or just basically by like brushing their teeth and removing this plaque so we don't have the accumulation of the plaque.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And is, as you mentioned, we can change some components of the diet to try to select probably some bacteria or to not make some specific bacteria grow that is going to have those detrimental effects. So very important to keep oral health, but if you have, for example, maybe a dog with a very severe periodontal disease, does it have any impact beyond the oral cavity? So what is the importance of telling maybe the pet food industry or pet parents why it's important to keep oral health or good oral health for dogs and cats?
So if you think about like the oral health cavity is the first to contact with the outside world. So like you're putting things from the outside world that can bring in like, again, bacteria, virus, fungus, all those kind of things that can possibly be harmful to the animal. The good thing is normally this tube that we are putting those things are very intact because their animals healthy. But after, like, again, if they have a defensive periodontal disease, this tube is going to have some cracks in the middle that the bacteria or fungi or like virus can penetrate and go everywhere, because after they go to the bloodstream, they can go everywhere in the body and cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of studies that have associated higher levels of periodontal disease with heart disease, kidneys, and lung disease. But also, like, there's a recent study with even Alzheimer's. So, like, we know that bacteria can cause problem not only in one part, but everywhere after they go to the bloodstream of the animal.
Yeah, no, that's very important because we know that it can cause that, but some people still have that idea that, oh, it's just the mouth, it's nothing is going to have beyond
Yeah.
that. But as you said, it has a huge impact on the overall health of the pet and metabolism, so can really impact different tissues and organs, as you mentioned.
Well, I was just mentioned because I think most people don't treat oral health as a problem, because again, it's basically like how we treat the oral health for ourselves. So, like, if you come from a background that, like, you don't go to the dentist every year, or if you don't brush your teeth very frequently, you think like, oh, if I don't do that for myself, what is the importance for do that for our pets? And also, I think it's very recently that we are starting to like having that, like, oh, you should be like doing more for the oral health of pets, because again, prevention is not a very focus on the like clinical in general. So, like, normally you go to the vet when your animal's sick. Not a lot of people go to the vet to prevent something. Not a lot of people go like every 6 months or every year to the doctor to check if they're healthy. So I think it like the same way for humans and veterinary, we have to work together to prevent more than just going to the hospital when we need it. So, like, I think that's is something that needs to be changed.
Yeah, no, great insights, and I totally agree. And that's a problem, I think, not only with veterinary medicine, but with human medicine. We have the same still idea about going to the doctor to treat, not to prevent, as you mentioned. And that links very nicely with nutrition, because pets, they eat every day, we eat
Yeah.
every day, so nutrition plays a major role in also prevention of disease and maintaining health of animals, and probably with oral health as well, which is our major topic here. So usually if you talk with veterinary, they're going to say that nothing is going to replace daily toothbrushing, which is true to kind of maintain oral health. But for sure, nutrition can play a role as well. So let's try to delve into how we can manipulate diet or treats to help maintain oral health or prevent the accumulation of bacteria and development of calculus. So the first thing that you also mentioned is texture. So how the mechanical action of food or treats, they can play a role in oral health.
So, as you mentioned, it's very hard for us to have a pet owner that really ever diversity of the animals. That can be one, they didn't know that they need to do that. Two, it's very hard for you to get an animal that is not used to have the manipulation in the mouth to get used to having that done every day, and it's really a challenge for a lot of owners. And some animals, like,
Yeah.
even if you try very hard, it's going to be almost impossible for you to do, because it's going to be stressful for the animal and also for the owner. So I think nutrition is a very good thing, because again, it's something that is we give to the animal every day. So you're gonna already provide a diet. Why not in the diet have something that is gonna prevent periodontal disease or help a little bit in the periodontal disease? Again, like you said, it's not gonna remove the importance of like daily brushing or going to the vet to have the cleanup in a yearly basis or more frequently, depending of the case of the animal, but like it will definitely will help. And the way that this mechanical effect works is the same way that brush. So you want to be removing the layer of bacteria that you have in the teeth. To do that, you can manipulate the texture of the kibble or the treat that you're giving to the animal. You don't want to be too hard that the animal you're gonna bite and it's gonna break and crumble, but you also don't want to be soft at the point that it's gonna glue to the teeth of the animal, and then it's gonna create it like a place for the bacteria to proliferate. So you want something in the middle, so a texture that is not so soft, not so hard, but when they chew, it doesn't crumble. So you also want
Mm-hmm.
a size that, again, if it's a very small kibble, dogs are not gonna bite; it's gonna swallow without having any contact with the tooth at all. So you want something that is a little bit larger than a conventional kibble, or a treat that is a little bit larger than just a small bite. So that will help to create a space for the teeth to go inside, and go out, having contact with the kibble and removing the layer of bacteria. And that goes also for shape. So the different shape that we see in our own treats is basically to have more contact with the tooth of the animal. So if you have a V shape, for example, when the animal bites, you have two areas of contact instead of like just one point of contact. So that is what people work together with shapes, different shapes, to try to see if different shapes can have more area of contact to like really remove that layer of bacteria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And also for the treats, I think we have more room to play with the size and texture as well, maybe with the kibble. So they probably have a maybe a not bigger impact, but they have a more area of contact. Sometimes they can help a little bit further, right?
Yeah, and I think also for owners, like when you think about food, we especially kibble, people associate it eating fast, like the animal like that food. So like, oh, if my animal eat very fast, they really enjoy their food, and that is
Yeah.
not the point from kibbles that is made for periodontal disease, because the point is for them to eat very slow so they can bite more times. And like people associate that as a bad, that oh, my cat or my dog is not liking this kibble. So that is why I think a lot of kibble diets in the market that is specific for periodontal disease doesn't get a lot of sales, because like the owners associate that with a bad thing, and like that's something that is like, again, education and everything. So each diet has different purpose. It's not because they are eating slow that it's going to be bad.
Yeah, no, very good point. And we see the human animal bond, the palatability of the diet, or the enjoyment of how the enjoyment of the pet while it's eating is very important for the owner. Again, is a way to kind of they think to provide love is providing food and how they're eating it. I think we
Yeah,
also have to help and educate them that food is not the only way to provide love, maybe enrichment, playing. There are many other ways. So they get to detach a little bit of food and let the food play other important roles other than this connection with this human
yeah, for
animal
sure.
bond. So this mechanical, as you mentioned, action is going to help to kind of remove the calculus or prevent the bacteria to build up that is there. But probably this is only going to happen with the teeth that are in contact, right, with the kibble.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen with all the teeth that is in the dog's or cat's mouth. So what other dietary strategies can we add? Maybe a chemical action to kind of bind to specific components in the saliva to help prevent the deposit of minerals in the food, on the teeth, sorry.
So one of the things that has been a lot of like studies published already is the polyphosphate. That is something that is like not new. That is not recent
Yeah.
in years. It's something that people already have been using in the market for so long. The good part of the polyphosphate is, again, in the saliva we have calcium, and then the polyphosphate really like to the calcium, so they get attached to the calcium, so the calcium is not available to calcificate the plaque. So like, again, if we go back to how the calculus form, is basically you have the plaque, and then the calcium in the saliva is going to go to this plaque, and then it's going to calcificate this plaque, making it very hard and very difficult to be removed. And because it's there and it's not like a smooth place, other bacteria can go in and like proliferate in this place.
Mhm.
Is just like going and getting worse and worse and worse. The whole point of using the phosphate is to avoid the change from a plaque to a calculus, so the calcification of the plaque. And that is pretty good, because it not only works again in the place that the animal is eating, but all over, because after it's like there in the mouth, is going to work together with the saliva. And again, the saliva goes everywhere, so it's going to go everywhere and then going to work all in the all oral cavity. So it's a very good thing, and it has been already proven that it works.
Yeah, no, that's great, Masai. And there is any maybe dietary strategy that can we utilize potentially to modify the pH of the saliva to potentially prevent the calcium to precipitate and form those salts and the calculus on the surface of the teeth?
So I think the best thing that you can do is make sure that your animal is drinking more water, because like it's the same for everything. So like when the animal is drinking more water, the pH is going to change, and also the concentration of calcium that we have in the saliva is going to change due to the water intake. So I think the easy thing that you can possibly do is that, because like if you think about diet, again, you have to think of something that the animals are going to be chewing for a long period of time to have some effect, or something that is going to be there to be used by the bacteria to change and ferment and change the pH. But that is not something that you want. You don't want anything to be stuck in the teeth of the animal to be doing that. You want something that is like is not going to be accumulated. So like the whole point for the oral health in animals in general, we don't want anything to be accumulating there. You want something that is not going to be glued there. You want to be removing bacteria. So water is the easy thing that you can possibly do in your home. Just make sure that the animal is drinking a lot of water, and that is going to help you prevent the calcification.
Yeah, no, great insights. And now that you mentioned water, you remind me of wet pet food. Is there any difference between feeding dry or wet pet food as the whole source of, let's say, metabolizable energy for the animal on oral health? Is one better than other, or not really?
So it really will depend. So like when we think about wet food, we think about like the commercial like canned food or the like beets or something that is very like soft. We don't really think about like homemade diets or like all the other types of wet food that has more
Mm-hmm.
moist in it. If you think about canned diets compared to dry food or something that is like soft compared to dry food that doesn't have anything hard in the middle, for sure, again, you're not going to have the mechanic effect that it will have with the kibble, and that is going to really make, if you compare one with the other animals consumed for the same period of time after you clean the teeth of the animal and then you start feeding those two diets. If you feed the wet food, you're going to have more accumulation plaque compared to the animals that is receiving the dry food. But again, it's like the soft kind of wet food that we are talking about.
Yeah, and probably as you mentioned before, there's specific size of the kibble or
Yeah,
engineering behind what kibble should we feed. So probably those very small kibbles, they're not going to have any effect. So probably
yeah.
not.
If the animal is not chewing, it's not going to have any mechanic effect.
Yep. Um, so we talk a little bit about the phosphates, and I read one of your studies that you were investigating a specific immunoglobulin to help with oral health. Do you mind telling us a little bit about it and maybe the results that you found in that study?
Yeah, so that was my master's study. Again, is a little bit different because we are talking about antibodies, and like it's kind of weird for people to understand.
Mhm.
But like very simplify, what the antibody does, they attack specific proteins. So the way that this antibody is created, you expose like birds, like chicken, to this specific protein that we want them to attack, and because they are exposed to that, they're gonna create antibody against that. And because they are bird, they're gonna lay the eggs, they're gonna have this antibody in the eggs. Then we dry these eggs, and then this powder is used to coat the diet. So in this study, we used two type of diets. One diet that was coated with powder egg, not just conventional powder egg. And the other one was the powder egg from birds that were exposed to the protein that we want, that is the gingipaina. Gingipaina, again, is a very specific protein that Porphyromonas gingivalis produce. And one thing that they do, they break the health tissues, creating the periodontal pocket. So again, they help create the anaerobic environment for the pathogenic bacteria to proliferate. So the other thing that this gingipaina also does, they block the response from the immune response from the host. So one, you create an environment for potential pathogenic bacteria to proliferate. And the other thing that you do, you don't have any immune response. So like the bacteria is going to proliferate very happy there because nobody's going to be attacking them.
Mhm.
So if you block that protein to happen or to do their effect, you're going to prevent, again, the creation of this anaerobic environment. And also you're going to prevent the block of the response from the immune host. So like you're going to help the host attack those bacteria, and you're not going to have that anaerobic environment that those bacteria survive. So you're going to block in the beginning step of the periodontal disease. So again, this additive is going to be very helpful to prevent the periodontal disease, not if you have more evolved periodontal disease. And what it did, it was proof for in my study with cats that it really helped prevent the proliferation of bacteria. So we have lower plaque index in those animals. I think they have using similar product with dogs and have also affecting reduce the plaque, but also calculus formation. So again, when in fact we talk about reduction calculus, we are talking about in comparing to the control diet. So it's a reduction compared to the control. It's not because like, oh, we remove calculus. No, you avoid the formation of the calculus.
Yeah, no, very great insight about how we evaluate and conduct research. So it's not change over time only. You have to compare to a control to see if again it's going to prevent, not only do that reduction.
Yes.
We see a lot of new additives and supplements in the pet food industry. Do you have any insights about maybe potential? People say sometimes botanicals that help with oral health. Is there any specific, characteristic or thing that people should look at when they look at additives, how they should work, mechanism of action, or is there anything popping up in your head that may have a potential for impact oral health?
So I think there's two main things that we tested when you want to prove that something can help in oral health. One is again avoid plaque formation. And the other one is avoid the calcification of this plaque. So the two seals that we normally receive is one for help prevent plaque and help prevent tartar. But again, you can also look inflammation. So if there is gingivitis or not gingivitis, so you can use the gingivitis index. We can talk about microbiota again. So if this additive or this diet shift the microbiota or not. A salivary pH is something very important that we can talk about. We can talk about like inflammation markers that we can measure in the saliva of this animal. So if it's controlling inflammation or not using inflammation markers. We can talk about images, just like if you have a mouth and you compare before and after, if there is any change in the image of the mouth. So like it's very easy for you to compare before and after in the same animals or across again a control and not a control in a treatment group. Um, well, it's really going to depend on what you're expecting the additive to be doing. So if it's just a mechanic effect, it's going to be basically focused again in the plaque and the calculus calcification because it's not going to really target inflammation. It might have a benefit because if you remove the bacteria, you might prevent inflammation. But again, if you start with a clean mouth model, not necessarily these animals is going to develop inflammation if it didn't never happen for a start. If you are talking about like something that you want, again, if anyone have a cancer or something that is already have inflammatory or is already have like tissue damage, then we can think about like those inflammation markers and are specific for the disease that you're trying to target. So it really will depend on what you're expecting the additive to be doing. But I think the easy thing, like again, if it's just for periodontal diseases in general, is being plaque and calculus is going to be the main thing. Saliva is going to be the second thing. And then if you have any shift on microbiota, it would be nice to see too.
Yeah, no, great insights and great plan on how to build and which outcomes should we look when you do specific research. If any pet food companies develop a specific treat or a diet, they kind of understand what they should look at when they look for the research of universities and everything. There is also in the market, we see some products that are awarded with the Veterinary Oral Health Council seal of acceptance. So they have that seal. What does it mean and how can, is it harder to get those? Is specific studies that pet food companies, they have to do to get that specific seal?
Oh yeah. So again, it would depend on what is going to be your target. If it's just a mechanic effect, if it's chemical effect, or if it's a combination of both. So there is different protocol for each of those kind of ingredient that you're adding or formulation that you're doing. So for mechanic, it's very simple. So you have a control that doesn't have the mechanic effect. So it's going to be just the dry food. Another one that is the dry food plus whatever you adding that had the mechanic effect, and you are comparing across. They say that normally they ask for 20 animals, and then you don't need to like balance or anything. Like they would say like not balance. They would say that it will consider to be normal because of the population that you have. If you have less than that, then you have to kind of try to balance based on like where you start. So like you have to start and see if everyone is the same level of periodontal disease, and also like they have specific teeth that they request for the animal to have present for you to analyze. Again, the seal is just for the plaque and for the tartar. So those are the only two seals that they do. They don't do for inflammation because inflammation is considered to be a health related problem. So it's a different department that gave you that seal. But they ask for everyone to do the gingivitis index to prove that doesn't cause any harm. Because like if you have increase
Yeah.
of inflammation, then your ingredient or whatever you're testing is causing harm, so it's not going to get approved. So even though they don't give you a seal for inflammation, they request everyone to do that just to prove that the ingredient is safe for use. If you have, again, the one that have chemical and mechanical, you have to have three groups. So one group is going to be the control, just dry food without chemical or mechanical effect. One group with only the mechanical effect, so you can prove that it's not only the mechanical effect that is doing the effect, and one with both mechanical and chemical too. So you can have like maybe the mechanical chemical is better than just the mechanic and is better than just the control that doesn't have anything.
Yeah, no, it's important also for people to understand what does seal mean and how can they get it. And those studies are expensive. They're not cheap at all, but it depends
No.
on the goal of your company or what you're looking for. It may be worth it or not. But we can
Yeah.
also do so other studies that are not going to get the seal, but you're also going to evaluate some outcomes of oral health.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's not like everyone that is willing to do those kind of trials. And again, like as you said, expenses, time consuming, and also you need to get approval. And sometimes you have to redo your study. And normally they require you to do two study to prove that you can repeat the same result.
It's time for our famous three.
Well, thank you very much, Masai, for joining us today. I think we're almost done with the podcast, but before you leave, I'd like to ask you final three questions.
Oh, okay.
Those are not related to oral health, so I'm going to take you out of the oral health spot right now. There are always some questions I like to ask for all the guests that I invite here. The first one is you are a very successful person and you're around successful people as well. So what is a common trait that you have observed in successful people?
Oh, that is a very trick question. So I think like every time I think about the people that I really admire, they are they really like what they're doing. So you really need to love what you're doing because otherwise you're not gonna do correctly or you're not gonna spend so much time doing something that you don't love. The other thing, you have to be able to connect with people and be able to work together because that is one of the most important things that everyone needs to learn. You cannot do anything alone. You need other people. It's impossible for you to even do a study by yourself because like you're not a robot. So I think being able to talk to people, work together, communicate very well, and like that is very important. So like it's always important to have very good skill and communication, making friends, and like know that you need help and that you don't know everything, and there is always someone that can help you, and that is something very good. And also being very humble. That is like together because like again, if you're very humble, you know that you don't know everything, that you can ask for help, and you need to ask for help. And I think that is one of the things that you cannot forget. Like you have to ask for help. You need help. You cannot work alone. So I think those are the three things that I every successful people that I know have. They very good talking with people. They are very good at asking for help when they need it, and they really love what they do.
Yeah, I totally agree with love what we do because some people say, oh, if you love what you do, you're never going to work one single day of your life, but it's the opposite. If you love what you do, you're going to work even more.
You're gonna work
So
you're gonna
you're
work
going to work
way more.
even more. So yeah, don't fall into that. If you're starting a career now, you're going to work even more if you find something that you love.
Yeah, yeah.
The second question I was interested is, you for sure love research and you are in this area. So what do you like the most about being a scientist and being a researcher and being in academia?
I think the thing that I love most, like the thing that made me start, was like one trying to do something that we can change how we see nutrition and how we see like anything. Like for example, we have a concept what is right and what is wrong and what we should or should not do. But when you go to research, you know that most of the things are not black and white. We have something in the middle. So like it's not 100% you have to do that and that is the only way to do things. You can do something different and you can maybe be in the middle and have a better result. And especially when you work with pets, we always have to think about like it's not only trying to figure out the best amazing diet, is figure out what is the best for the pet and the owner, because it doesn't matter if you have the best product in the market if the owner is not going to give to their pets, it's not going to
Yeah.
work. So I think it's always like interested to be in the middle. So like that is what I think. Something in the middle is not black and white, and research is not black and white. It's not always that we're going to have the best results. Not always that the project is going to work, and we always have to adapt and be like flexible to adapt. And that is what I think is good about research in general. You're always changing, you're always learning, you're always evolving.
Yeah, and adapting and being flexible and yeah. The last one, I think, do you have a pet? Do you have a dog or a cat?
Oh, I have cats. I am very cat person. So I always grew up with cats because we always live in apartments, like in São Paulo, in Ribeirão Preto, always like small places. So I think cats are very good to live in
Yeah.
those places, especially because they are very independent. So like I was most of the time or in the university or doing work hours like crazy. So like having a cat is always nice because they are independent, but at the same time they are very unique and they have their personality. So it's always interesting to see how they behave and the things that they do, the silly things that they do.
Yeah, and with many of them have very strong personalities. So have you
Yes.
ever been able to brush your cat's teeth, or you're never were able to accomplish that?
So my cat he's very well, not well trained, but like he is very motivated by food. So like if you want him to do something, you can give you a treat, so he's gonna do it. So he knows how to give you a paw, give you a high five, and jump the hoop, all those kind of things. And he walk outside, but all because he is very well motivated by food. So he let me touch his mouth. He really don't like it. He moved a lot to doing that, but like he really let me do it. So it's something like, again, I understand how hard it is, and I understand that some people will never have the time to do that. But I don't think it's something that is completely impossible to do if you really, I don't know, try and like have the time or the right personality of pet to do that. So my animal is specific how he's very motivated by food. So if you want them to do something, you do what you need to do and give you a treat after. And I know that it's like, oh, you just brush their teeth and you give the treat, but like again, is the whole part is to remove that layer so they it doesn't accumulate it. So even if they eat after, it's fine if you're gonna do that again and remove again in like in a time managed. So like if you do that every day, it doesn't gonna matter if you eat right after it.
Yeah, I have a cat too, but very food motivated as well. But no, he doesn't let me brush his teeth. So I always try to do some other dietary strategies to help with that. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. I really enjoy our conversation, and I hope you join us back for a future podcast.
Thank you so much. It was very fun.